Okay, so we're going to be looking at painting in Photoshop. I have a little bit different technique than you're probably used to here, but I want to show you, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. We're going to start everything by doing this simple sphere kind of painting, the classic value study showing light direction. But I think it's really helpful when you're learning this painting in Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and make a new document here, just in case you don't know how. Basically, file new, make sure what your resolution is always 300. We're just going to do an 8.5 by 11. Oops, this needs to be 8.5. But we're going to do the width. We're going to do it landscape. So width to be 11, height to be 8.5. RGB color, background white. So just make sure that, of course, make sure it's in inches. Resolution is 300. Create. Now you'll notice my little workspace here. I can take and separate stuff, which is going to be important for us later when we're using photo reference. If you can't do that, it's because you probably have this application frame on. So make sure that is unclicked. It's under Window, Application Frame. Yeah, so make sure you unclick that. I do want you to use a certain brush. We have, and these brushes have all changed with the new versions of Photoshop, and kind of drives me crazy. So that's something else you'll have to hunt and find here. Open your brushes palette, which is this. But you will, by default, you probably won't have these legacy brushes on here. To get those, go up here to the little options menu and click on legacy brushes here. That'll bring those up. I want you to use where is it? This one here, heavy flow dry edges. It's kind of this flat brush. Looks like a paintbrush stroke. But we're not going to even use a brush at first. What we're going to do first is basically use the gradient and the polygonal lasso tool and selections to kind of build this underpainting up first. The gradient tool is here. It's a little bit different than in Illustrator. So look at some of these options here. Make sure it's linear gradient. This is where you change that stuff. It's probably available somewhere else too, but make sure it's not one of these other settings over here. You want the linear gradient. We do want transparency, so make sure that that is on. And let me see how this looks right now. You'll notice if it's doing that, where it's basically erasing what's underneath, it's not transparent. So what you need to do is Window, Gradients, bring up your Gradients palette, and that's here. I don't know where it'll pop up for you, but what we're wanting is a second one. Notice this first one is black to white. The second one is black to transparent. That's the one we want. We don't want it to, watch how this just keeps building. I'm going to undo. Okay, so make sure you're on that transparent one. Make sure you have transparency clicked up here. And then also notice up here, it's from color to the transparency grid. And again, on linear gradient. This is kind of nice because you can just, whatever color you pick, it puts that color in the color side and goes to transparent. We do want to turn the opacity way down though here. We want to build these up in layers. So make the opacity down like something like between 20 and 30. I don't know. I'm going to try 30 and see if I like it. So see, we just get a nice subtle soft gradient there. But then we're also going to use this polygonal lasso tool to make selections. Why are we going to use this when we could just as easily use the circle selection? And it's just because I want you to draw these by hand. So with the polygonal lasso tool, notice it works almost like the pen tool, but it makes a selection instead of making a shape. We can, so if we look at this now, it's not a perfect circle. I'm not worried about it. We can subtract from a selection. Remember where you're selecting to. The inside is what's selected, right? So we drew a shape. What's inside is going to be the selection. If we just went with our gradient now, notice how we can build that up. I'm just going to work to make this a little bit more round. So like I said, you can add to this if you hold, guess what, Shift. We can add to the selection, and you do have to, because the inside is the part that's selected, you have to start on the inside and just kind of, once I'm there, I can close this. We can take away by holding Option. If you're on Windows, I don't know, you may have to figure out what that is. We can always close by going right back to where we were. Sometimes that's hard. It's kind of nitpicky. So another option is if you just hit Command and click, it automatically closes no matter where you are. I'm going to just go with this for now. I think this is fine. I'm going to choose, I want you to choose something dark. It doesn't necessarily have to be pure black. I guess. Actually, for this I do. I want you to choose pure black. 0000 down here. And go into our gradient tool, which is G. Think about we're going to have our light coming in from this side. This side's going to be darker. So I'm just dragging up from this side. Notice I have to kind of like work my way around it. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but that's okay. Deselect. We want it to sit on a tabletop, so we're going to use the lasso tool again. Remember, if you hold Shift, it keeps it perfectly straight. Notice that it won't let me pull it up or down. So Shift is on. And drop, oops, clicked outside of it. Do you have to make sure your window's big enough? It keeps me reduce my size a little bit here. I'm going outside because I want to paint the whole, I want to paint this. So this is what's selected now. And I'm just going to do a, well, okay. Gradient. It's going to be lighter over here. Remember, our light's coming from this direction, darker over here in general. So I'm just not worrying too much about it yet. Going to hit it like that. Actually, before I do that, notice how, because this was still selected, it colored that more. I don't want that. So I'm going to undo back to there. And I'm going to take away this part of it. When we're taking away, we start outside the selection. Add to it if I need to. G to get my gradient. So just kind of build it up a little bit. Don't go too dark, too fast. Deselect. Notice Command D is deselect. Notice I missed a little bit here. That's okay though. We'll get back to that. Now I want to select the background up here using the lasso tool. Holding Shift, selecting all this, closing it. So now this top part is selected. I'm going to make this, I do want to make this pretty dark, and it just looks better if it's darker down low. Oops, I did it again. Lasso, I'm going to take this part away. It's hard to see it there, but just guess. If you notice, I'm trying to loosen you guys up a little bit. Don't want you to be so concerned about every little thing right now. So build that up pretty nice and dark. Okay, deselect. And really, some of this hard edge, stuff, we're going to get that to go away. There's going to be a lot of like going back and selecting things multiple times, and just through that, some of this stuff will go away. I realize now I want this to be a little bit darker, especially over here. Oops, maybe a little too dark there. I'm also going to put a drop shadow. Drop shadow is going to be darkest here, lightening up as it goes this way. Okay, I think I could go back and select this again. Essentially, this is, we have all the parts that we need here. I'll do this again, just a little bit. Got a little dark there. More up here. Okay, let's see what. This is an underpainting. We're going to build on top of this with the brush. So get it to this point where it has a good structure. I feel like it could be even darker over here. Sometimes you can do this kind of thing if it's just light overall. So I just went did a great gradient over everything there. I'm going to choose this brush, the Heavy Flow Dry Edges. This is where we can start to clean stuff up. But notice, I want it to have some brushiness to it. This looks too, just too smooth overall. What I'm doing here is Option, while I have the brush selected, Option clicking, and that automatically it gives you the eyedropper, so you can eyedrop color, and when you let up off of Option, it takes you back to your brush. Something else that will help here is R. If you hold down on R and turn, so you can rotate your canvas. Oh, I guess we need to adjust this. It's a little harsh. Maybe take the opacity down to like 88. Flow down to a little bit lower, like I don't know, 66. It's going to look like a painting, not like a computer-generated image. Make sure you're selecting color right next to where you are painting, so that you get the closest color. Remember, on a sphere, it's always going to have a little bit of this reflected light in there. So you don't want it to be too light, but it lightens just a little. Just like with drawing, think about your direction of mark. If you find it's getting too scratchy looking, make your brush bigger. You can either, there's the brackets, the closed bracket, the one on the right makes it bigger, the open bracket makes it smaller. Another little trick is holding Control and Option, and if you slide to the left, it makes it smaller. Control and Option, and click and slide to the right, makes it bigger. That's the one I use all the time. And like I said, if it's getting too brushy, scratchy for you, make your brush bigger. So why didn't we just start with the brush instead of doing the gradient underneath? Well, notice that, we're pulling this color right from here. I guess it's value in this case, but so it kind of gives us this map to start with of where our values are going to be. Don't have to do a whole lot up here. It's going to look like a mess for a while, but that's okay. Keep working at it. It'll get there. The more you keep painting over it and selecting color from it, notice if we zoom way in here, put a stroke down, notice how it's slightly light color here, it's slightly darker here where it overlapped to darker. So that's what we're kind of doing, is blending these colors by selecting where they're naturally blending because of the brush type, the opacity, and the flow. Just kind of go back and forth and getting too dark, or if it's getting too light, like I feel like that's getting, look closer here and select some darker color. Then that'll give you even darker color. Yes, it's not easy, right? Everybody thinks digital painting is just going to be this easy thing. You select a color, you fill it in. And some styles can be like that. And I'm not saying those styles aren't worth it, but I want you to make a digital painting that looks like a digital painting. We can work on some other styles later of painting. If you look at some of the best digital painting, digital concept artists and stuff, you're going to see brush strokes a lot of the time. Some of them, like I said, have a different style that you may like better, but give this a try. It's going to get there. Notice I'm almost color picking before every brush stroke. It's still easier than if you were trying to render with a marker or something. But do these big so I got that middle color there. Go a little bit to this side, it's going to be a little bit darker. You know, think about where you're selecting the color from. That's not working. I don't really want this to be pure white over here, but pretty light. The computer's catching up. There we go. I think maybe this is got a little dark down here. I think sometimes saving, if your computer is lagging a little, well, part of it's because I'm using this big brush. We're doing 300 resolution. Selected from right at the edge, sometimes to get a better blend. I think, yeah, this all could be lighter here. Normally this isn't even this slow. I don't know if it's because of the screen recording is happening at the same time. I'm making a almost 4K screen recording here, so it might be slowing things down a little. But I was going to say, I think sometimes saving can help your computer catch up a little bit too. It's getting there, right? Look how it's, you know, at first you thought this is a big nasty mess, and maybe you still think that, but I think it's getting there. And just lowering opacity won't really work. What you'll end up with then is this mess where you can kind of see through every brush stroke, which can help in some ways. You know, if you feel like the opacity is too high, maybe take it down a little. I'm on 88 there, maybe 80. That could help you a little. You know, that doesn't look too bad. It looks like real paint, but definitely don't lower it way down. Trust me, it makes it even harder to get a smooth gradation with super low opacity brush, because you can see through all of it. Nothing ever covers anything else up. If you're using a tablet, which I think you definitely need to, because these are all pressure sensitive. So if you don't have one, you should go, make sure you go into the Mac Lab to work on this stuff. Maybe I need to start going a little bit smaller with my brush. But we're not smudging. That's one thing I don't want you to do, is smudging. I think it looks almost as bad in here as it does in drawing, like with a pencil and you're shading and you're smudging it. Build this up through control of the brush instead of just smearing it. This makes you, and I know it's hard, this makes you think about each stroke, what value it should be. And notice I'm making some bad ones like that, you know, it needs to be darker there. So I can just go back over it. When I take that darker stroke over it, it blends with it, and then I can pull that color, or that value. A little bit bigger brush here to, and not that. Kind of blend those together. So it makes you think about brush size too. Think about your marks. Oops. It doesn't happen instantly. It takes some time. But yeah, you really do need a tablet because it's pressure sensitive, so mouse isn't going to really do the same thing. Brush bigger. I guess that's kind of how I blend. As you're refining, yeah, you're going to make the brush smaller. Pick the right color. Remember, it's going to be really dark right under here. You get less dark as it comes this way. This edge is still bothering me a little bit. I'm gonna try to select right on the edge of it. See how you get that middle value. don't be afraid to make a mess. So it's going to be a mess sometimes, and then you clean it up. And kind of that back and forth struggle of making a mess and cleaning it up is what will give the painting some of its character. I don't want this video to go on forever, but keep working at it. You can see if you keep refining, you can move to where you kind of get rid of these big bands and start getting a little more smooth transitions there. Takes some work though. In some parts we don't feel like you have to paint out everything, you know, there's parts where our gradient still shows through and it works. The background could use a little help here, but there should be a spot where the background almost blends with the sphere. It's a lost and found edge, hard edge versus soft edge. Okay, I think you get the idea, so build this up. Remember how I started it. You know, I could probably still put another 30 minutes into this, smoothing it out to where it gets a little more seamless.